What's up, everybody? Andrew Cooper here, Howard Bender, and wow, the new and improved tech team really nailed the intro today, right on time. And we're right on time for Wednesday's best ball draft. This is the hashtag family draft, and this is like a super family draft, Howard, because it's you, it's me, it's all the regular heavy hitters. We're gonna try and mix in some new people, but this one, all heavy hitters, and we have two guests. We have Ryan Weisse of Club Fantasy FL. He also writes for Football Guys. And we also have the GM himself, Jim Bowden. He's going to join the draft with us, and he's going to pop on the show in a little bit, say what up. And I'm sure you guys will break it down tonight on the show, Howard. Is that right?
Oh, that is definitely right. Jim Bowden is anxiously awaiting for this draft to start, so we'll get that going. Want to thank everybody for tuning in here. Do us a favor, hit that like and subscribe button, even just the like button. I'm not going to be greedy, but I will be greedy. But it's just a great free way of showing how much you appreciate the work that we do over here. And yeah, super pumped up. The GM, Jim Bowden, obviously from the Fantasy Alarm Show on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio and CBS Sports analyst. This guy is he's like the James Brown of sports right now, with between MLB Network Radio and CBS and the Fantasy Alarm Show and writing for The Athletic and everything that he does. I want to just put like a sequin cape on him and bring him into the whole thing. So yeah, he's going to join us in a little bit here. So Coop, why don't you give everybody the specs, the rundown? I will start this draft up. And I will set that draft board for us to follow along with as well.
That's right. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to everybody on Twitter. I mean, if you want to support us, pop over to YouTube and watch over there. Helps us out. But if you're watching on Twitter, that's cool too. If you're watching on Twitch, that's cool too. So what's up, guys? What we're doing today, this is a family best ball draft. That means it's a contained 12-person draft. Everybody that joins gets a badge over on our Discord, but the winner gets upgraded to a trophy over there. We got a lot of cool stuff going on over there for our members. If you want to draft with us, go over to fantasyalarm.com, get an all pro membership, or buy the best ball cheat sheet, and we'll sneak you in these drafts. I see everybody hanging in the chat. What's up, Jack? Jack's drafted with us today, and there's a few Cowboys fans in here, not just Jim Bowden. So the Cowboys are going to be hot and ready today. I see what's happening, man. Mile High Luke, Scampers, Bobby, Voitko, Anthony. The chat is popping, and the draft is popping too. We got the draft board up there. Kismet picking at 1. That's Jack Straw. Jack sends in Cowboys fan, and he's got a couple wins in these last year. The only person other than myself, Howard, to win 2 of these last year. So big dog right there, right? And his first pick off the board is in with CeeDee Lamb, Cowboy. Look at that, Howard.
Right. And all of a sudden, the frustration is going to be there from the GM, who's like, wait a minute. What the heck just happened here? He's picking where am I? I'm picking 5th. The GM's picking 7th. All right, you took Jamar Chase. I like that. I like that a lot. McCaffrey, Chase, Lamb. I feel like Pontrio going to be making the pick right in front of me. That's going to be problematic for me throughout this draft. But I'm absolutely loving the spot that I'm in right now with Tyreek off the board. Now the question for me is, Coop, is which way do I go? Which way do I go? The newly paid Justin Jefferson, or do I just kind of go with the chalk?
Yeah.
According to Bender, and grab a little Breece Hall.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, the thing is, the conditions are perfect for Breece Hall to not only have massive upside. I mean, he was the RB2 last year, but the floor for Breece Hall with the receiving ability, right? And I was looking into it this offseason. Breece Hall led all running backs last year with screens with 30. And the guy who led the year before that, well, that was Aaron Jones catching screen passes from Aaron Rodgers. And the guy who led the year before that, well, it was also Aaron Jones. So the setup here of a team that already likes to call screens with a quarterback that's very much willing to throw screens. I mean, Breece Hall has such a good floor in terms of receptions that you can't go wrong. I mean, there's a number of players you can't go wrong here. I personally have been taking both Breece Hall and Bijan over Jefferson just because it's like, why mess with an unknown quarterback situation if there's guys that are that are locked in, they're studs. Same reason I took Jamar Chase, right? It's like I like Chase, I like Burrow. Whether T. Higgins is gone or not, it doesn't really matter, right? Like it starts with Chase and it trickles down. Doesn't matter what goes on with Tyler Boyd or Jermaine Burton or whatever. So that's why I feel really comfortable with Chase in that spot, you know.
I'm definitely Chase over Jefferson. I'm CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill over Jefferson as well.
Yeah.
Jim and I were kind of debating it on the show the other day as far as Amon-Ra St. Brown versus Justin Jefferson. And he's settled in on Amon-Ra because of the quarterback situation, the role in the offense. He knows he's comfortable there. You know, me, I went with Jefferson simply because I think he plays a different style of game, but yes, you're going to be dealing with a new quarterback, and it's either going to be Sam Darnold or it's going to be JJ McCarthy. Either way, I know the offense that Kevin O'Connell likes to run, that Wes Phillips is offensive coordinator. I understand the play calling and things like that. I think between these two quarterbacks, I think Jefferson will see enough volume to maintain his level. I get the hesitation because of the quarterback situation. I'm banking on player talent, player overall talent, coupled with the scheme, as opposed to worrying too much about the quarterback. I get it. There's a little bit more risk involved, but that's kind of where I'm sitting in.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, when you talk about like the type of player, this is the format where it's okay to go with those guys over Amon-Ra St. Brown, because the one knock on him has been that he's not a super high A dot guy, and this is the half PPR format, right? Like there are a number of them out there that are full PPR or tight end premium and all these crazy things. This is the one where you can look at it and say, okay, big chunk plays and touchdowns are a little bit more valuable in this one. So I don't mind it at all. We know Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be just fine, but again, you're splitting hairs at the very top. These are the arguments that you get into when you're at the very very top, and a lot of times doesn't necessarily end up making a huge difference, right?
Yeah. Now, as Coop said, also it's half point PPR scoring for everybody who doesn't know. This is a contained draft. This is not a part of the puppy. It's not a part of the best ball mania. This is a contained draft, so it's just us against each other. It's best out of the 12 wins this one. So obviously, we talked about this a lot last week. You and I drafted tournament style. This time here, are you changing your strategy back to a contained draft? Are you feeling like that aspect of it? And if so, is it just best player available for the first couple of rounds? What's your thought process coming in?
I only got one strategy today, Howard. It's beat the GM. That's my strategy today, and I'm sure CeeDee Lamb went one overall, so I'm not the only one with that thought process. You know what? If he's going to be, because I've been tuning into the show, he's had some critiques for these drafts. Some picks he would have made, wouldn't have made, this and that. Today, I want to make it tough for him. Today, I want him to get on the show and say, "Hey, wow, you know what? Those guys, the Fantasy Line members, they know how to draft over there. We want to see him squirm today." So that's my plan. I know some guys that Jim likes, who doesn't like it. We're going to get him on here shortly to talk to him about all that too. So that's my plan today, Howard.
Without a doubt. All right, you want to hit on some Brandon Ayuk stuff while I get ready to make my pick. He's holding out. We've seen receivers signing. What do you think? You think Ayuk holds out for a little longer, or do you think San Francisco just kind of takes it and fixes it?
Yeah, I mean, so what I saw today, there was a step towards potentially getting him a new deal. People saw the new contract for Christian McCaffrey, and they saw, the highest paid running back reset the market. What didn't really come out until after the fact was that they moved money around, the fancy accounting, and actually did free up cap space. The 49ers, I went and looked on over the cap, are actually, I think, a top 7 or 8 team in terms of cap space available right now. Of course, they need to pay Purdy. They got to keep all these guys happy, but I think they can probably get it done. The thing with Brandon Ayuk and why I'm still willing to draft him in these formats is that his skill set translates to virtually every team, right?
Yeah.
Like certain guys, like T. Higgins, if you have, like, let's say the Broncos, you have Cortland Sutton already. What are you going to do with T. Higgins? He pretty much only plays big split end. With Brandon Ayuk, you find a spot for him, right? He can play flanker, he can play split end, he can play slot, he can do it all. So a guy like that, I would just focus on paying him and keeping him because virtually every team could use a Brandon Ayuk, right?
Yeah. 2 rounds into this draft, Coop, and it's all wide receivers again. Coming around here, I took Michael Pittman. before even like Nico Collins, Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, Mike Evans still on the board. I just haven't had any kind of shares of Pittman. Just wanted a little slice of it. I know he's the number one target in that offense. And, yes, we know Anthony Richardson's still kind of working around, but again, here we go. It's heavy wide receiver. We'll get the GM in here in a few minutes to talk about the fact that he went Bijan Robinson and Devon Achane, the only person to go running back here. I mean, we're looking at again, just there's so much running back value that still seems to get pushed down. I'm curious as to whether or not you think, are we going too heavy onto the wide receivers?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the thing is with these big tournaments, people really skew towards the wide receivers, and we know the hit rates and the advance rates in these big tournaments. But I honestly do think that it's not the ideal strategy for a contained draft, how high they're all going, and it's going to trickle over into redraft to some degree. Obviously, in when we get to your hometown draft, and it's people that don't really pay attention to this stuff, they're going to be drafting running backs like crazy. But I don't know. For me, and again, this is coming from somebody who just started with 3 running backs, but that's because I don't know. It's hard for me to get out of the first tier of running backs into this middle group. I don't personally love Derrick Henry in a best ball format. I don't really love Kyron Williams, so I don't know. My hands were kind of tied there. What do you think, Howard? Like for you, your ideal first 5 picks, how many of those picks are running back?
At least 2.
Yeah.
At
Me
least
too.
2. And I did it here, right? Breece Hall, Travis Etienne. I love the GM going Josh Jacobs there. I actually thought about Josh Jacobs at that point, but I'm already, with all these drafts that we're doing, I'm already overweight on Josh Jacobs. So I went and took Etienne. But yeah, man, I feel, and I know it's like a stodgy old fart kind of way to go about it and say that you want to lock down your running backs. But, the bottom line is that teams that are advancing to their league Super Bowl, that are doing well in best ball formats, are also teams that haven't been, struggling with their running backs. Maybe they hit running backs late in their draft who just kind of popped. We've seen that happen a bunch of times where, somebody just makes like a late round pick and it actually works out for them. But, when you're sitting there, I don't want to avoid the Jahmyr Gibbs or the Bijans or the Breece Halls. I don't want to avoid Jonathan Taylor or Travis Etienne. So, for me, first 5 picks in any kind of a best ball format, I still want to have my 2 running backs in there. It'll probably be 3 wide receivers. Maybe it's 2 wide receivers and a tight end, depending on the way it goes. But I don't know, man. Am I dating myself here, Coop?
No, because I mean, even just going back a couple years and last year, I mean, like obviously CeeDee Lamb had 400 PPR points or whatever, but Christian McCaffrey had like 380, right? Like a lot of times, the guy who gets the right big dog wins. Going back to Todd Gurley and the year that Alvin Kamara scored 6 touchdowns, like that still is on the table here, right? There's still the possibility that guy is out there and he just wins everything. And we forget that it can happen in other positions too. Like it's so easy to forget that one time that Peyton Manning threw 55 touchdown passes in 2013, and like that, whoever had him just won. Like that can happen again. So be careful. Like there are more 50 touchdown seasons out there. The only ones we've seen are Tom Brady, and Peyton Manning, and Patrick Mahomes. I mean, you could get your face ripped off. Remember the time Cam Newton had 35 passing touchdowns and 10 rushing touchdowns?
Mm-hmm.
It could happen again. So there were league winners all over the place, and for me, I'm not going to just say no wide receivers no matter what. I'm just going to take best available player. For me, this time it happened to be wide receivers, even though I don't know if I love the Deebo Samuel pick. Where are you at with Deebo Samuel? This is
I'll tell you what.
We'll
come back to Deebo because I do have some thoughts on him for sure. But I want to bring the GM in right now. He's raring to go. We're gonna get a live pick out of him. Bring him on in here. The GM, Jim Bowden from CBS Sports and Fantasy Alarm on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Yeah, let's go, baby. All right, make sure your queue is set because 30 seconds on the clock, Jim, is a tough order here because now I want you to talk to me about 3 straight running backs in a sea of wide receivers.
Yeah, look, I like to zig when some people zag or zag when some people zig. But look, I am old school with running backs. I've won a lot of championships with emphasizing it. I had a chance to get 3 guys who I think are going to be impact running backs this year on the board. A lot of people went receiver. So I went with that opportunity here. I feel like I can still get wide receivers in picks 4, 5, and 6 here. So I emphasize the running backs, but I like who I got. You look, I only have 3 running backs rated for the first round: Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, and Bijan Robinson. My goal was I want one of the 3 if I can do it. Otherwise, I got to go receiver first round. And fortunately for me, Bijan was sitting there. I grabbed it. I think Bijan has a chance to develop into the best player in fantasy. So when I'm sitting there at 7, if he's there, hard for me to say no, Howard. I am a big fan of Devon Achane, and I think he's a first-round caliber running back. But because of the injury, because of the way Mike McDaniel runs the offense, Raheem Mostert's going to get his chance to get his shares as well. But Achane is one of the fastest players in football. And he gets you yards after contact. And when you have the receivers that they have to throw, it opens just a lot of the field for Achane to go off. And then my third pick was Josh Jacobs. You and I have talked about him, Howard. In the third round, I absolutely love him. I don't like him in the first or second round, but I love Jacobs in the third round. I love the offense in Green Bay. And again, it's kind of like the Dolphins, right? Because Jordan Love's going to have 3 or 4 really good receivers to pick from. That opens up the field. You're not going to be able to fill the box to stop Jacobs or fill the box to stop Achane. Otherwise, they got receivers open all over the field. So I like that kind of environment for those particular running backs.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I sat there on the clock and I had Josh Jacobs as my top dog. Like I was ready to take Jacobs, but then I looked at your team and I said, I want to make things hard on the GM, so I'm going to take a wide receiver here and stick it to him. And you know what? You didn't blink. You saw the headlights coming and you still stuck with your guns. Took Jacobs, so I love that. Your 4th round pick and your first wide receiver, T. Higgins. I want to ask you if you could put I know you got your fantasy alarm hat on. If you could put your GM cap on for a second, because folks that might just be joining us for the first time, they might not know that you were a professional GM in a major sports league. With T. Higgins and the stuff that's going on here, in your experience, do you think this is something where they can work it out this year? Do you think he's going to play on a 1-year deal, or what's your feel on that situation? Because obviously he's not happy. He's not showing up right now.
Yeah, look, I do believe that he will show up because you don't have an option. And people like Le'Veon Bell that have tried to sit out, they find out it doesn't work. Anyone that's held out or tries to skip a year, hold on a second here, because I've got to come here and pick up Jaden Reed, add to my wide receiver room. So there he goes with T. Higgins. So
this is like yesterday's show all over again here, but live in a draft room.
Yeah, I said yesterday how much I love Jaden Reed, my number 1 receiver for Green Bay this year over Christian Watson. So love the fact that he was sitting on the board for me there. But anyway, what were you talking about, Coop?
T. Higgins, yeah, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt your victory lapping on getting your guy, but yeah, T. Higgins, what do you think?
Higgins has to play because you don't have another option. He's not going to sign long term there. They're not going to be able to afford him with the cap, right? He's going to have to put up a great year to get paid. It's as simple as that. He's got that incentive. He's not going to roll over, and he's not going to not show up, because if you don't show up, you don't get the free agency anyway, and you don't get paid anyway. So for T. Higgins, yeah. And Joe Burrow will he'll you can double cover, do whatever you want to chase. Higgins will have a huge year like he has in the past. So yeah, I like the play. I like the availability. A lot of times it's what's the opportunity in front of you, and I love the opportunity in front of him.
So Jim, let me ask you a question. As we see, in best ball, one of the things that we've been talking about a lot on the show is the top level of tight ends, and so Laporta, Kelsey, Mark Andrews, Trey McBride. Obviously we've got, Coop's boyfriend, Dalton Kincaid still on the board. There are, that's probably the last of like that top tier. Target wise for you, is that a move that you want to do? Is that an advantageous move for you? Do you want to make sure that you get it, whether it's best ball or season long? Do you want to get that top tier of tight end? Because obviously, like, you miss it now, taking 3 running backs, and then you got to, stack up some wide receivers. So you obviously have to sacrifice something. You sacrifice the top tier tight end. a move you'll do regularly, or maybe something you mix in every so often?
No, look, I think if you had just been quiet there, I would have got Kincaid this round, but you had to bring it up and you had to screw me, which is what you did,
Which
which
is the
is
goal.
fine.
Which is the goal.
Otherwise, he was going to fall to me, and that would have been my pick. No, look, Howard, it's a great question. So if I can get one of the top 4 tight ends in general in a lot of drafts, I'm going to take one. If I don't, then I'll sit at the very end and I'll take 3 dodo brains and hope one dodo brain gets me points each week, and I'll just try to beat you in the other positions.
Yeah. We've seen that not only work in best ball, but we've seen it work in big tournaments like across the board. In fact, one of the winners of the Scott Fish Bowl, Gary Haddow, that was his exact strategy, Jim. He drafted every other position for, I want to say 14 or 15 rounds. And then he took 4 straight tight ends. And one of them just so happened to be Darren Waller in the year that Darren Waller broke out and went crazy. And when you do that and you load up elsewhere and then get lucky at the one position you punt, magic things can happen. So it's not a crazy strategy. And especially with this early ADP, I think there's some guys down there that could really pop. I don't want to say the names right now because I'm part of the draft.
Knows.
But when nobody knows who I like, even though my rankings are available over at fantasyalarm.com/bestball for anyone interested. But yes,
I'll pop that QR code up here. I want the live intel on the GM's next pick here. Rare is going to make his pick right now in 15 seconds. And there you go, Jim. Live pick.
Yeah, I'm taking Calvin Ridley, wide receiver of Tennessee. I think he's going to have a solid year. Again, after taking the 3 running backs with my first 3 picks, focused on 3 receivers, the best ones available. I gave some thought to Hollywood Brown. I just don't think we're going to get consistent production from him. I think he'll have some big games, but I didn't want to take him that early. I thought about doubling up with Christian Watson there, but I just think Ridley, I think Hopkins is in decline. I think he'll decline more this year. And I think when you give Ridley that kind of money, I think he's going to be the main receiver for them. So Higgins, Jaden Reed, and Ridley after taking Bijan Robinson, Achane, and Jacobs, I think that's a solid start to the draft.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's a solid start to the draft. Now, talk to me here. I guess the thought process here now is you look and you see quarterbacks coming off the board, the tight ends are off the board. There goes Anthony Richardson, who I was kind of hoping and praying would come back to me on this round. But
I was hoping you would take him and I could get Godwin. So
well, there you go.
We need trades.
So let's just make a trade. I didn't realize that was you for a second.
That was me. Yes, that's
Coop.
why I wasn't talking there. Is that I was ready to just easily click Godwin and then go in to ask Jim a question. And I had to recalibrate because you sniped me.
All right. Well, as Coop and I battle back and forth here, Jim, talk to me here now with quarterbacks and tight ends versus and what you're kind of looking for and hoping. You can name names. We know who's out there.
Yeah, so I'm looking for defenses and kickers, Howard, since you're picking 2 away. I think you should draft Harrison Butker next. Yeah. So I'll talk to you after you take your pick. You're picking up next. So why don't you give our listeners what you're going to do with your next pick? Well, you're on the board in 15 seconds.
I will. And I'm very disappointed to see Kyler Murray off the board. Obviously big fan of Kyler Murray and what happens this week, this season, especially because I have Trey McBride and that didn't, so I was hoping to kind of pair it up. This quarterback run, and being that it is best ball, and I know that people are going to go for that second QB, obviously, because of what Coop just did there. So I don't want to get left out in the cold, and I will take my top QB, who I will make sure that you, Jim, do not get your Jaden Reed, Jordan Love little pairing.
Okay, yeah. So I was going to take Joe Burrow with that pick, and then I was going to take Jordan Love with that pick. So I'll go to Dak Prescott and boom, take him as my quarterback, and I'm okay with that. I think he'll have a good year. I think he'll be playing for a contract. I don't think the Cowboys are really going to be able to extend him with the way his agent doesn't want to take a discount. So he may be playing for a contract. And look, the Cowboys win 12 games every year, and the points that he puts up always pretty consistent here. So I'm fine with taking Prescott. look, I certainly have them after I had Burrow and Jordan Love, so it lined up. But I took the best available, and I'm okay with that. I was okay waiting on a quarterback, Howard, because I like my 3 running backs and my 3 receivers, which I think is more important.
Right.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, with Dak falls into a similar category with the guy I took, Kyler Murray, where the opinions on him, especially from real life NFL fans versus fantasy fans, kind of pushed the value down in fantasy. But the fantasy's always been pretty good, right, Jim? Like,
Right.
especially
Yeah.
think even consider the playoff game last year, right? He came
Yeah.
out, had some bad turnovers, right? But at the end of the day, if they lose the game, but he had 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. For us in fantasy football land, like, I really don't care if
Yeah, it works.
sorry. Oh yeah, I don't care if the Cowboys win. I don't care if he puts himself back against the ropes and has to throw his way out of it. I love that for fantasy. Same with a guy like Kirk Cousins. These guys that people question whether they can take a team to the championship and they have the fortitude or whatever. I don't care. I don't care about fortitude. I care about fantasy points. So I have no problem taking Dak. I have no problem taking Kyler. I'll take all those guys.
Yeah, it's such a crazy fine line, like being an analyst, being a fan, and understanding, that you have to separate reality from fantasy, because it's true. I don't care who wins this game. Just let my quarterback throw for 300 yards. Like the reality aspect, like we have to obviously blend the reality into fantasy when we understand schemes and target shares and all the great stuff that we dive into over at Fantasy Alarm. But wins and potential to win a championship, like odds for that, like I don't care about that. Like that to me is just, it's statistical production. Jim and I, we're doing that all-time fantasy baseball draft on Sirius XM, and we had that whole conversation about whether it's about the numbers, not about how great this guy was. Like Josh Gibson, for example, was phenomenal, right? Best slash line ever. But if you look at his stats for a given year, he's never hit more than 20 home runs and 73 RBI. That's not something that I want in fantasy. Great slash line, but I want everything. Oh, what happened?
I just got, oh my God, he just took Christian Watson right in front of me, you piece of crap.
You could have had the best of both worlds.
You just did that to me, you piece of crap.
Yeah, shout out to Rarelyn. This is actually their first time drafting with us. Just earned their first badge on the Discord. They come in and make a statement and a stamp right away. I think Rarelyn's going to fit in really well around here, Howard. What do you think?
Yeah, probably. I was eyeballing as well because I have Jordan Love, so that was something that I was kind of taking a look at. But yeah, wow, some very interesting things changing around here. Very, very interesting things. So I'm gonna come here with my pick right now, and I'm gonna go back to my bread and butter. And yes, those are my running backs, and I don't want to miss out on this guy again, because, especially in a PPR environment, even half-point PPR, Javonte Williams, a full season of him with Joe Lombardi throwing to the running back, and, him being able to outdo Jaleel McLaughlin and Samaje Perine. They'll spell, but, full year removed from comeback from an ACL tear. I'm very, very bullish here on Javonte Williams this season.
Yeah, and they just took Nick Chubb for me, and I wanted both Javonte Williams and Nick Chubb. So this group I'm drafting with is pretty impressive, and they're pissing me off, so you all need to know that. Yeah, you guys are making it way more difficult on my butt than it should be. Yeah, I don't appreciate it.
That was the plan from the start. Yeah, Toronto Dave's got it in the chat. Snipe City. Mile High Luke saying the best Green Bay wide receiver still on the board. If you're about to say Devontae, if you're about to say Dontavian Wicks, then you're getting banned from the chat.
I think he means Romeo Dobbs.
Maybe he does, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, Dobbs,
I like Dobbs. Dobbs is on my board as well. If somebody wants to pick him off in front of me, go ahead. Everyone else has. Oh, you took Mostert in front of me too, you jerk. Thanks a lot, hamburger.
Robble. The Hamburglar sneaking in on the GM. I love this, right? This is like full tilted GM right now. I
got a guy that I really want to take next, and no one take it. I only got 3 people in front of me.
All right, well, I gotta make my pick. So let's see, which way does the GM want to go?
I'm probably gonna go kicker or defense here.
You are going to go kicker defense. All right. Okay. Well, if that's the case, if you're going to go kicker and defense, then I will take that last Green Bay wide receiver off the board.
Yeah, I love Patrio out there. I take Tony Pollard, and a few picks later, he just says wrong and takes Tajay Spears, right? There's nothing better than that feeling. That's
all right. I'm going to get my guy here, and I think this is a very underrated pick in this spot. Here it is.
Ooh.
All right.
Bengals.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jim. So, again, huge thanks for you joining here on the show. I know you and I both have busy days and everything like that beyond, but talk to me here about Zach Moss. Break him down a little bit for me, and then I guess I don't know, whatever else.
Yeah, I mean, look, Joe Mixon is gone, right? They traded him. He's on the Texans now, and so who's the number one running back in Cincinnati? It's Zach Moss. And how well did he play last year? He was impressive, but he doesn't have to worry about Chase Brown. He's going to be the guy there. And so I really like the spot that he's in. And remember, he's running back 4 for me. So, I got Bijan Robinson, I got Achane, I got Jacobs, and now Moss. But those are 4 number 1 running backs.
Yeah.
And I like that in the best ball format. I like the fact that I was able to get 4 there. I also took 2 quarterbacks, and I took my second quarterback earlier than I normally do. And I want to tell you why, okay? Please. Because I didn't get one of the top quarterbacks that I wanted. They were all off the board when it was my time to pick. So I took Dak Prescott, who I like and I think is good, and he's solid, although he doesn't have the weapons that you would like to see that he used to have. He doesn't have them now. And I felt it was very important if there was another good quarterback similar to Prescott that I put him in there. And Brock Purdy was sitting there. And Purdy has McCaffrey. He's got Debo. He's got Ayuk. He's got Kittle. He's got all these weapons. So Purdy is going to always put up good points. So know each week that I'll get either Prescott or Purdy's numbers. I got to be honest with you guys. I like that idea. I like that theory. It gives me 2 choices each week to get the better points. And if you can't get an elite quarterback, one of these 2 guys might give me an elite week. And an elite week is the same thing as having an elite quarterback.
One more before I let you go, Jim, because you got another pick coming up here. What is your thought process in best ball? Would you consider, since you didn't get an elite QB, would you consider taking a third QB with one of your final picks?
Yeah. Now, I didn't. When we did the best ball on Friday, Howard, it was my first best ball of the year, and I'm putting myself in penalty flags on Thursday because I didn't take the third quarterback in that best ball. I will always take 3 quarterbacks.
Okay.
If I don't take 3 quarterbacks, then I consider it a mistake. I think you have to, because you have to be prepared for an injury.
I hear you. All right. Well, Jim, again, thank you so much for joining us here. You guys, obviously, Jim Bowden from CBS Sports, the Fantasy Alarm Show on Sirius XM. He's on MLB Network Radio. He's all over the place. So we're going to break down this draft in more detail on tonight's show on the Fantasy Alarm Show. So you guys are going to want to stick around for all of that for sure. Appreciate it again, Jim. So have a great rest of your after. I just got auto picked as I'm like exiting here with Jim. I just got auto picked. It is at least Cortland Sutton.
Thanks,
unbelievable.
guys.
Bo Nix coming for me later. I got that Denver stack. Jim, thank you so much.
Later, Jim.
Damn it! What happened?
That's how it goes, dude. You gotta. It's tough to host. I mean, I'm
like
hosting, drafting,
gums,
doing all, running your mouth. There it goes. Plus, you just like when Jim's got the light blue shirt and it makes his eyes really pop. It's easy to get lost in those eyes, So there's a lot going on today.
It's like the first time I heard the Beatles.
That's right. Right. You're like, what is this? It's beautiful. Yeah. But speaking of eyes that it's easy to get lost in, and great guests and great analysts. Jim is out, but we have another guest who's drafting with us today. Yes, we like to load up a couple experts in these to go with the members. We don't like to make it easy. I'm on the clock here, so let me bring them in. We've got Ryan Weisse from Football Guys and Club Fantasy FFL, who was kind enough to have me on the show the other day, so we're doing a little home and home. What's happening, Ryan?
Gentlemen, how are you?
What's going on?
We're kind of disheveled a little bit. These sharp drafts kind of send you.
Well, I heard Jim getting all angry, but he didn't understand how mad I was when he took Jaden Reed. So everything bad that happened to him in this draft, he deserved for sniping me on Jaden Reed. So I'm not feeling sorry for him at all at this point.
That's right. There's a lot of revenge in these family
Yeah.
drafts, isn't there? Yeah, it gets pretty cutthroat out here, dude. So like the family throwing you a welcome from our multi-champion Jack.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So why don't you walk us through? I see you're the Fantasy 5 on board
Yeah.
here, drafting out of the 10 spot, looks like. So first 2 rounds, AJ Brown, Chris Olave, Jalen Hurts, James Cook, David Montgomery, Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, Deontay Johnson, Brock Bowers as the tight end 1, the rookie tight end, and then another rookie, Lad McConkey. You're going to be on the clock momentarily, so hit us with a pick, and then kind of tell us how it works in with the build you got going. As Rare Lynn looks to snipe once again.
Yeah, looking this over, and Palmer wasn't quite a snipe because I already have McConkey, so that probably wasn't the direction I'm going. This is something you and I actually just talked about last Wednesday, Coop, was I have my own projections in, so I don't quite know what everybody else is looking at when I'm going in and making my picks. So it's just kind of a guessing game at this point. But I figure I was able to get running backs I liked in the middle of the draft. I started off at wide receiver. It's time to get back to wide receiver. When you're building a best ball team, you want some depth at that wide receiver position just because you can start so many of them half PPR or otherwise.
Yeah. So I love the Brandon Cooks pick there. I was actually just looking. I was looking around. I'm like, okay, we always preach top 2 target on the team for tight ends. We're like, top 2 target, that's what you want. And I'm looking around and I'm saying, and I'm like, okay, who was the best player that was the 3rd target on the team at any position, right? What I did is I took all the wide receivers and tight ends and put them into a bucket to see who were the 3rd targets, right? And the top 2 you can kind of throw out because it was Justin Jefferson, who was only 3rd because of injury, and Deebo Samuel, who was only 3rd because of injury. The next guy was actually Brandon Cooks, technically behind Jake Ferguson over there, but he was the highest finishing player that was 3rd on his team in targets last year. And as we know, is Jake Ferguson fully entrenched and locked in as the 2nd target there, or is that kind of up for grabs? Is that your thought process there with the Brandon Cooks pick?
Yeah. When I was looking, I just recently wrote an article.
You're on the clock too. I don't want to.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking at running backs. There was a snipe now, so now I'm completely tilted. Yeah. I don't even like this guy, but I'm going to gamble just because I'm on the clock. So.
Ooh, that's spicy.
Yeah. Didn't we just talk about how bad he was on Wednesday?
We did. What? Hey, I like the thought process.
I just took him in a best ball yesterday.
Yeah, I was like,
I know.
You feel dirty.
There's so many picks like that.
He's coming off at like RB 50 for crying out loud.
Yeah,
I mean, at some point, you just got to make that move.
Well, I wanted Zeke so bad. I didn't come into this planning to walk out with every Dallas Cowboy, but with the Cooks, and then Zeke was just going to lend itself. So that one hurt and definitely threw me off. But no, I just wrote an article on Dak Prescott for Football Guys, and one of the things that struck me was how slow Brandon Cooks started. And I think that left such a sour taste in everybody's mouth over that first month. He had 9 catches through 5 weeks. And so everybody was done with Brandon Cooks. We were writing this guy off. It was finally going to not be a 1,000-yard season with a new team. All of the bad stuff that comes with a wide receiver getting slightly older. But then when you look at the rest of the season from week 6 on, he was like the wide receiver 25, 26 in fantasy because Dak was red hot, and I don't expect that to slow down this year. So Brandon Cooks, this late in the draft, as you mentioned, Jake Ferguson ahead of him. But this is a team that, as I was just telling everyone, I want Zeke. This is a team that's going to probably take a step back at running, and they're going to likely throw the ball more. You have this franchise quarterback. You obviously have CeeDee Lamb, but there's still plenty of targets to go around, and there's not a ton of talent behind Brandon Cooks in the wide receiving core.
I mean,
I gotta get in here because I need to address something with, like, it's just in general question. It's not, but it just so happens that Ryan drafted the player because I want to know everybody else's take on this. I have a very strong take on DeAndre Swift.
Okay.
And I'm very curious. So before I even mention how I feel about DeAndre Swift, I want to hear your kind of your breakdown, your thought process behind him.
Yeah, it's an ambiguous backfield, and that gets a little rough. But the fact of the matter is this: while analysts have been pumping up Khalil Herbert for ages, and he's looked good in small bursts, we've never seen him play a full season. We've never seen him do it. We saw Swift go to a new team last year and take over that backfield, played quite well, caught the ball well out of the backfield. Right now, we have this sour taste in our mouth of a very ugly Chicago Bears offense that we have to understand is going to be an improved offense. And I think DeAndre Swift is there to lead that backfield this year. Roschon Johnson, not a high draft capital guy. He's a player that I really liked until DeAndre Swift got there. And so it just really comes down to, when you look at that backfield, I don't think there's an argument to be made that Khalil Herbert or Roschon Johnson are on DeAndre Swift's level in 2024. In Dynasty, they might be the better buy, but for 2024 and an offense that I like being led by Caleb Williams, I think Swift is going to have a lot of opportunity in the passing game, and I think he's going to have a lot of opportunity to score touchdowns.
So here's my thought now on it, because I get what you're saying. My hatred of DeAndre Swift actually has nothing to do with the Chicago offense. I think you're right. He is in a good situation. My problem is that Detroit got rid of him. Philadelphia was like, no. Like, this guy puts up like 2 good games in the first 3 weeks of the season, like these monster games. Everybody's like, this is the DeAndre Swift we all loved. This is the DeAndre Swift we all wanted. This is the DeAndre Swift we all expected. He's going to be the greatest running back of all time. And then this dude disappears. It's not even injury related. Like all of a sudden you just start seeing less touches, fewer targets. Like, he gets phased out. And I'm wondering if this is just, if it's the player wearing on a team and on an offensive coordinator who's just like, this guy just doesn't give me what I want. Therefore,
yeah.
It's a fair point. I just wonder if Philly was trying to learn from Detroit's mistakes and trying to not use him as a bell cow, because all we talked about with Swift in Detroit was how explosive he was and how efficient he was, but he couldn't stay on the field. Now, Philly still gave him 229 carries, and he was their most productive passing down back. But I wonder if it was that. But to your point, I'm not in that locker room. I don't know if it's just they're not seeing what they want to see from Swift.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I'm kind of straddling the fence on this one, because I don't like to depend on those guys in redraft. I fell for it last year. Howard warned me about Michael Thomas, like once you get into that world of attitude and disagreeing with the medical staff and all that it gets ugly. And I fell for it again. Miles Sanders, another one of those players where he's, these guys, when they come out and say, oh, don't draft me in fantasy because that's not how we do things here and all, you know what I mean? And I hate fantasy football. It's like those attitude things. I mean, it can grate on teams. We saw there's been a number of players like the Brandon Lloyds of the world where nobody wants them around, right? And sometimes, at the end of the day, somebody has to pick who gets the football, right? These plays are designed for certain players, especially at running back, where the running back coach gets to pick who goes in and who doesn't. So it does concern me a little bit. It does concern me. And I just wanted to mention one thing here. I want to get your thoughts on this player. But with my last pick, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I go, oh, it's time. Like my internal clock told me it's time to draft Hunter Henry. So I go to pick him. He's not there. And I go to the board. I'm like, which one of these rascals took Henry? And it's you, Howard. Like, he should. It's a good spot to pick him because I was going to pick him there, but it's just ridiculous that you're getting him every one of these drafts. You're getting him one spot ahead of me. Driving me nuts. What are your thoughts, Ryan? If you had to pick, so he took Henry, I turned around and took Jalen Polk. If you had to pick a Patriots player, and I know it's kind of gross, if you had to pick one that's not Ramondre Stevenson, which one will you pick? And I'll even let you pick Drake May.
In a best ball format, it's Hunter Henry.
This format,
it's Hunter Henry. You wanted him, Howard got him. It was the right pick. We saw weeks last year where Hunter Henry, after 2 weeks, Hunter Henry was the top tight end in fantasy football. Unfortunately, he fell completely off, but then had another pretty big game towards the end of the season. I think he did something like, I'm probably off here, but it's something like 43% of his work in 4 games last season. That screams best ball. That's exactly what you want in this format. And obviously, Howard, I don't know your team off the top of my head. I don't know what tight end you're looking at this point.
He's looking at all of mine. So everybody we talked about last
all
Wednesday.
of yours. No. Listen, I've said this. My tight end stance is very simple because I'm a huge fan of the position and the advantage that you get. And, for years touting Kelsey as that first round pick and, looking at the rest of it right now, for me, tight ends, I'm targeting like 5 tight ends, the top 5 tight ends. I feel like you're going to get a significant advantage over the teams that don't get the elite tight end. 5 of you are going to be very happy.
Yeah.
Well, 4 will be happy. One's going to be like, God damn, what the hell just happened to him?
How is he number 5?
Right? Like that's what we're going to get. But beyond that, like if it doesn't happen for me, for one of those guys, then I'm all the way down in the Hunter Henry, Juwan Johnson range. Like I'm all the way down. I love Hunter Henry because of what Alex Van Pelt does for the tight end in the system, especially when you're looking at, limited, receiving options. Like, no, there are no top tier receiving options over there, respect Pop Douglas, but still, come on, let's be honest there. So, I think Van Pelt kind of, wants to do a little bit to him, like he did with a player like David Njoku. So that's why I'm in on it. But it's like that mid-tier of tight end. I always feel like I'm reaching. I don't want Njoku anymore. I don't want Goddard. I don't want a Cole Kmet. I don't even want an Evan Engram at this point. Sorry, Coop, respect, but I still don't even want that.
I'm out of here. That's it.
Oh, Rarelin is breaking my heart because I took Olave knowing I could get Derek Carr late, and I was watching this draft unfold and said,
no!
You shouldn't have said his name out loud because he was the only other option I had.
No!
You can't get anybody late with these animals here in these family drafts. It's just nobody goes late. I just took a tight end 40 picks above ADP because I haven't gotten him in one of these drafts, and I'm sick of it.
Right. Yeah, were you listening when I said I guess 100%. I'm going Bo Nix with one of my late
picks? I was listening, but I also need another quarterback, and I wasn't planning on going 3 in this draft. And now I think I'm going to have to go 3.
Son of a
damn. Yeah, this didn't go the way I wanted it to. That's for sure.
It does.
But my goodness, who were we talking about before? I got sniped.
Just shut it off.
Oh, Hunter Henry. I find it interesting, Howard.
I don't want to be around anymore.
That's kind of where I am right now too. Howard, I find it interesting. I was going to ask you if you don't mind divulging with taking McBride early, and McBride looked at as one of those top 4, 3, 2, maybe even 1 guys, depending on your ranking, and then grabbing Henry, who is kind of that perfect best ball complement. Do you have an intention of grabbing a 3rd tight end, or when you take a guy early, is that kind of it for you?
I feel like when I take a guy early, that's about it for me. I mean, yes, can I protect myself from injury by grabbing a 3rd tight end? I could. Do I feel like it's a little bit more valuable for me to be making like late round picks of Bo Nix to finish off a stack? Oh, no, wait, I can't do that. But I'm going to I'm just going to, I'll look and see who the running backs and wide receivers are when it comes to me. If it does warrant that, hey, maybe I'll just take a tight end. But I think I pretty much have it covered here with McBride and Henry.
Yeah, for me, like those last couple picks are 2 things. Full upside picks, and then some of those picks I call them like spackle picks. When you're like you got the spackle in your hands, you're looking around for cracks and stuff, and you just kind of spackle over it. So if I'm Howard, if I have Henry and McBride, I feel pretty good. If you went with McBride and Ben Sinnott, right, or McBride and TJ Hawkinson, where you don't know what games they're going to be around for or what games they're going to start for, that's when I go with the 3rd tight end at times. I look and say, okay, do I have what kind of risk levels do I have with the tight ends I have already? So if you have a very sturdy foundation with those 2, then I'm good. But even Hawkinson goes before Henry. But if Hawkinson is one of your tight ends, you almost have to go 3, right?
Yeah, Hawkinson's the interesting one because we all came into this misconception that he was not going to be ready for week 1, but all the reports are now saying he thinks he's going to be ready for week 1. So I bet the folks who took him in the early best ball drafts, the people who started this in, March, probably have 3 tight ends in all of those builds. And as we get closer in, I think Hawkinson's going to be a guy you can start seeing 2 tight end builds with.
Right. I still worry though, to be honest, because like now the more you look at the Christian Watson situation and the work that he's putting in on his hamstrings, and the information that's actually coming out of that is very interesting about they talk about, different sized legs and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And you start thinking about some of these players coming off knee injuries, like for instance, Victor Cruz, right? He had the patellar tendon injury, and it wasn't a re-injury of that ended his career. It was compensation injuries. That's what I worry about sometimes with these guys, is that it's not just about coming back and having the knee be healthy. is you need to have everything firing on all cylinders so that you're not pulling hammies and doing all this other stuff. So I always, no matter what, when we have guys coming off major injuries, I always factor that into something. I always say the injury recurrence, not just we're not worried about him hurting his knee again per se. We're worried about some of the other stuff. That's just how I kind of think.
I think that's fair. We see it so often, we can't ignore the writing on the wall most of the time.
Right. Yeah. But again, if Hawk, dude, Hawk could end up being a big time play. The other thing with Hawk that I do worry about is that Jordan Addison really emerged. Jefferson is back, and Jefferson did miss a good chunk of last season. And Jefferson and Addison are getting more work in now and getting on the same page with guys like Sam Darnold and JJ. I just feel like there's so much. There are so many things on the negative side compared to the positive side. Maybe you will get a discount with him and he's just incredible, but I just worry that he's going to be the third fiddle on a team with JJ McCarthy.
Well, you kind of took the words out of my mouth there. Is you hear it so much when we talk about Justin Jefferson and why he's not the top pick anymore and why we have worries about Justin Jefferson. If we're worried about Justin Jefferson, we should be terrified of TJ Hawkinson at this point.
Exactly, because the thing with Kirk Cousins is that you can't just decide to throw the ball 600 plus times. Like you have to be good enough at throwing the ball and running an offense to get there, right? You can't just say, "Oh, I'm just going to throw it a million times." You have to actually stay on the field, right? Like we forget what bad football looks like sometimes because a couple years like Blake Bortles, where it was bad but they were throwing a ton. Oftentimes, bad football looks more like, I'm sorry, Howard, what the Jets have looked like a couple of years here, where it's not really hucket-chucket football. It's more like 3-and-out football, right?
It's cold, baby. It's cold.
Dude, if the Patriots haven't won a playoff game in 5 years, so go Celtics.
Oh, in 5 years. Oh,
not 5 whole years.
I don't know what you're going to do with yourself, Andrew.
It's the drought, dude. The Bruins lost, so they haven't had a parade in forever. Here, So.
We'll see. Now what I'm going to probably do here is I'm going to have to just take Coop's standard last pick in the draft. So, Coop, if you were thinking that Russell Wilson was coming your way here for the final, it's not.
I loaded up. So I've been trying to insulate myself against your tomfoolery by picking guys early, and still, it's just you still find a way to needle me, man. You still find a way to get to me.
I do what I do.
Well, now I'm on the clock and I got to figure out who I'm picking because my guy's just going to take it.
I say you can put on tilt. Russell Wilson no longer there for you. What are you going to do in that situation?
I'm actually going to defer my final pick and not make it.
You're just gonna. That's it. You're just gonna let it auto.
Let the auto take care of it.
No, I'm gonna scroll.
Milking the clock.
I'm gonna scroll down and select somebody that's retired. I'm fully deferred. I'm taking Matt Ryan.
Oh, they gave you Dylan Lobby.
No, I took Dylan Lobby.
Oh, did you?
I
was going to say,
his
that's a pretty good computer pick.
Computer's hot right now. No, his ADP is actually oddly low. He's 214. There's like a huge chunk of guys that have ADP from 213 to 215 because it's only 218 pick draft. I'm talking like 80 players. So you actually do kind of have to scroll down at the end to quote unquote get your guy. Ryan, I didn't notice who you got there because I was too busy crying. Who did you take with your last couple picks there to wrap?
The last two picks, because quarterback and tight end got away from me, just excellent drafting towards the end of the draft by everybody with you guys. I decided I was going to kind of hedge my Jalen Hurts bet early on. I was the first one to take a quarterback because I wanted the A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts stack. So I just hedged it with 2 rookies. Basically, I just need one of them to be starting by week 5, which is probably a bad gamble with Bo Nix and Drake May, but I need one of them to be starting by week 5. And then tight end literally got away from me. I took Brock Bowers with the intentions of taking 3 tight ends. Everything looked really, really bad. So I took Jonnu Smith, who I think might be an underrated asset in Miami. He shouldn't have a ton of competition for targets. It could be another situation. We saw one of Jonnu Smith's best career years as a backup to Kyle Pitts last year. Now he gets to go be a starter in a much more high impact offense than what he was in Atlanta. We just got to hope he doesn't, remember that he's Jonnu Smith and as a starter, let everybody down again. So.
Yeah, that is an interesting sweat to put yourself into, picking a quarterback with the earliest possible bye week and then picking 2 rookies, hoping that one of them gets in there.
I'll be honest.
That's a fun one.
When Derek Carr went the pick before me, my entire draft was over. So the Derek Carr Ezekiel Elliott picks destroyed. Derek Carr's ADP, I think, was 196. I knew coming into this, I was going, as soon as I took Olave, I put Derek Carr in my queue. I started him, kept an eye on his ADP. I was going to take him around ahead of time. He got taken around in a pick ahead of time. So wonderful pick there.
I kind of like the Jonnu Smith pick on it in this format, this deep, honestly, because they use a fullback, right? So it's going to be consolidated among the top 3 guys if he can be the starter. And then you got if either one of those top wide receivers gets hurt, ball's got to go somewhere. I mean, Odell Beckham Jr. is not going to soak up a crazy number of targets, so I don't mind that pick at all. But yeah, that's the board for us. There's going to be further breaking down of this draft tonight on Sirius XM channel 87, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you tune into that. Jim Bowden will have plenty of time to stew over all the times he got sniped and bring the heat on that. But
no doubt.
Before we get out of here, Ryan, tell everybody, because you got a bunch going on right now. You're writing over at Football Guys. I love the Club Fantasy crew. Like every time there's an invitation out there, I always say yes. But tell everybody what you guys got going on. What's your favorite thing?
Yeah, so you'll find almost all of my writing work with Football Guys. We are starting our Player Spotlight series where writers get to pick and write about some of their favorite players, but also we're starting our Roundtable series over there where every writer gets to chime in on who we think are the most undervalued, overvalued wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks. Those articles are dropping every day for free over at Football Guys. It's a wonderful way to kind of get some of our favorite players. If the wide receiver article dropped yesterday, I assume that's why Jaden Reed went. The GM read it. No, I think everybody's starting to love Jaden Reed, but I've been on this Jaden Reed thing for a while, ever since I got my first run of projections done. Very big on Jaden Reed. So all my writing stuff over there, check out those Roundtable articles. And with Club Fantasy, that's where I do all of my podcasting. We are breaking down every single team every single week. And I also host a ton of mock drafts over there. So I've had Coop on with the mock drafts. I actually had Howard on with the mock drafts, and Howard's joined us over at Club Fantasy a few times as well. So if you guys are into mock drafting, every Saturday morning at 11 o'clock, I host Mock It Like It's Hot. We get everybody different drafts. We just started redraft season, but I like to do a ton of different formats. So I think this week I might throw Superflex out there. You don't see a ton of Superflex redraft. You see a ton of Superflex dynasty. So I want to see what that looks like. We do big leagues. We do small leagues. We don't league shame. We try to talk about how mock drafting can help you in different formats and just kind of knowing where these players are going to go. And so that way, when you're on a 30-second clock and your guy goes one pick before you, you're not in complete panic mode.
Yeah, I want to get an auction. It's so hard to get people together for an auction mock draft. That's the toughest one. Do you guys ever do those over there?
So as of last year, I don't think Sleeper even had the capability. I do all of my drafts on Sleeper. I think they actually do have it this year, though. It's something worth looking into. Maybe what we need to do is do one not on camera to see how much we can get done.
Slow draft or something?
Well, no. But I mean, just maybe get the right group of people together, do it not on camera so we can see how it's going to film. Because it's interesting because you could have one person dominating the conversation for 20 minutes and they're making all the picks. And then all of a sudden they don't have another pick for a half an hour, but you just got them talking about everybody else's picks. So it's an interesting format to look at that way. I don't think, having done auctions in real drafts, I don't think you'd be able to do a full auction mock on a show just because I love auction drafts, but they take
a while,
forever.
Right.
Well, they take a ton of time. And I mean, you can't sit here and break down your team and analyze your plays and everything like that, because you got to be listening to every single player that gets nominated. I mean,
it doesn't translate to live. There's not enough auction mocks out there going on in the world. I feel like every time I go into an auction, it's like,
you're not the first person to mention that, and maybe it's something worth looking into.
Yeah, but you know what? Listen, I used to run something called the Mock Draft Army, and this is going back, probably like 7 or 8 years ago is when it kind of ended. Andy Spiteri had taken over for me for that, but I had been running, mock drafts, doing like 8 mock drafts a week, multiple mock drafts in a night. And every year somebody was like, we got to do an auction mock. We got to do an auction mock. And I literally tried to put together an auction mock, around my schedule, and then 11 other random people's schedules, trying to figure it out. And it's a great thought. I champion you. I will champion you from the rooftops if you actually pull it off.
All right.
I could never do it.
I actually was just thinking about what I would do with the Monopoly money in a auction mock draft, and I'm not even sure it'd be a good look. Yeah. Like, whatever.
Well, I go into I have one pretty big auction league that I'm in every year where I go in kind of like with a budget of what I want to spend per position. And then like you, Coop, I see those names pop up that I want. Travis Kelce every year. I'm like, you're not taking Travis Kelce from me. I will pay anything.
Yeah, I've done that too. The aggressive, especially with my
100%.
sleepers, I end up overpaying for them. But all right, everybody, that's it for us. Thank you, everybody in the chat that joined us. If you're on YouTube right now or on Twitter, go over, subscribe to the YouTube, hit that like. It's free. It supports us. It means the world to us. And if you really want to support us, go over to fantasyalarm.com. Get an all-in membership right now because the best ball guide's available and the NFL draft guide is coming out towards the end of this month. And guess what? If you're an all-pro member, you get both of them and you get all of that. And you know what? Price-wise, it's the way to go. So the QR code is there on the screen. Tech is killing it today, I got to say, Howard, with the QR codes and the intros. But that's it for us. Tune in tonight, SiriusXM channel 87, and we'll be breaking down this mock. So thanks, everybody, for hanging out.